just to set the table for you, Rami, we were told by the Pakistani Prime Minister and Donald Trump and various Saudi-funded media outlets that there was going to be the signing of an epic peace deal between Iran and the Trump regime. Today, this was supposed to happen today. There was even talk of something happening in person in Geneva. The Iranian government has been pushing back against all these claims, saying not only is there no signing scheduled for today, but there are significant issues that remain to be negotiated, and it's not clear whether they will be resolved. And so that was all before Israel today launched an attack on Dahya, the southern suburb of Beirut. And this has been clearly delineated as a red line for the Iranian government. And in fact, the last time they attacked Dahya, when you and I were both in Lebanon about a week ago, the response of the Iranians was to strike Israel and to hit it hard, including the Ramat David air base. We've seen satellite footage of it having been struck effectively. And yet they did it again. They did it today, hours ago, when Trump and his various vassals and proxies were saying that they were about to sign a peace deal, and you happened to be on the ground. So why don't you take it from there, Rami, and tell us what you saw and what you learned.
Well, first of all, I just want to clarify, it was not Dahi that was struck. It was the border between Ghubairi and Harit Hrek, which is quite north. It doesn't forgive it any less or any more, right? But let's just say that it's much closer to Beirut proper than the airport or Dahi. So this strike kind of comes as a bit unexpected considering the location. Now, yesterday I was walking around Dahi, Harit Hrek, Burj al-Barajne refugee camp. I had a little issue with my eye that I wanted to have it checked. And I ended up at the Bahram hospital in Harit Hrek. And I remember walking out and feeling a bit uneasy. Very quiet. Hospital was calm. There were not many people, not many traffic going on there. And as soon as I left, I called my cousin who lives in Harit Hrek, and I asked him if I could pass by. And I rushed my way to his house. Subconsciously, I felt uneasy walking in Harit Hrek yesterday evening. And my accommodation was ending today at 10 a.m. And my cousin, who lives in Harit Hrek, and my uncle, they offered that I stay over at their house. They're like, why are you paying for an accommodation? You have a big house here in Harit Hrek. We will give you a room. There's a shower. There's a bathroom. Everything you need to feel comfortable at home. And this morning at 10 a.m., I was sincerely debating whether I should do it. At 10:30 a.m., my checkout was at 11. I was like, I don't really have time to pack my bags. I'm just going to extend it for 2 more nights. And then I will move to their house in Harit Hrek. And this morning I was having breakfast in Mar Elias neighborhood. And then I was having a coffee in the Mar Elias Palestinian refugee camp. And as soon as I got there, I spoke with the owner of the cafe there. It's like an outdoor seating cafe. And he, Dimitri, you're unmuted.
My apologies. I just want to stop you there for 1 second, Rami, just so people understand. The Mar Elias, as I understand, is a very small refugee camp, and it's predominantly Christian Palestinians. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
I think it might be the smallest Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon.
It might be. There's some refugee camps that have been closed, like Tel Zatar. This one, honestly, it's quite tidy, very wholesome environment. And I actually had a little, I'm going to focus on the main story here, but I had a little chat with the owner of the cafe, and we spoke about the reasons why this cafe is so, of why this Palestinian refugee camp is, let's just say, a lot more organized than, let's say, Burj al-Barajne or Satila camp. And he's like, did you hear about the attack in Dahieh? I'm like, I heard it on the news. People are telling me this on Twitter, but I didn't hear anything. Are you sure it happened? And the owner of the cafe replied that he had heard the strike. So it ends the. I mean, there's no need to double fact check it, whatever. Like if people in Morelia has heard the strike, we can more or less understand that it did happen and it's not just speculation. My cell phone ran out. I got 2 missed calls from my cousin in Haret Hrek, and then I ran out of data, so I could not call him back. It took me like 30 minutes to put data back on my cell phone line. Data back. I called my cousin, and before even saying hi or anything of this sort, he says, "Turn on the camera." He turns on the camera. I turn on the camera, and he shows me rubble and like his house is covered in rubble. The windows are completely shattered. The doors are on the floor. And now I understand why I got 2 fucking missed calls, right? I finish my coffee and I rush my way towards Haret Hrek, my cousin's house. He tells me the house behind us, the house behind his house in the building behind his house in Haret Hrek was targeted and bombed, which caused rubble and destruction on his property. I immediately run towards the Tariq al-Matar, the road of the airport, and I have $10 in my pocket. I find like a shared taxi, and I just give him the $10. I tell him that I want to go to Haret Hrek. He's like, "There's an explosion there. I can't really take you there." I'm like, "Just bring me as close as possible." I give him $10, which is way over the price of how much I should pay, but it's just to we understood that there's a risk going there, and we agreed to get there. There were other people in the car. I get off the car. I get out of the car. The road is blocked. The Lebanese army, for the first time we see them, right? Dimitri, were together in the south of Lebanon. They were nowhere to be found. Anyways, they show up. They block the road. I tell the Lebanese army that I have family there, that we have a house in on that road. They do not let me pass. I remember my cousin telling me that he always gets falafel at this intersection. I speak at the guy at the falafel shop. I tell him my cousin's house is there, and the Lebanese army isn't letting me pass. He takes me. He understands that this is actually my cousin. I give him the name. He background checks me like with these. He filters me out with some questions. He takes me behind through the back door of his falafel shop. We bypass the Lebanese army, and I rush to my cousin's house. I get there. It's a bit of a compound, my cousin's house, where it's like a family plot, and all the uncles, all the aunts have a like, let's just say like a property there. And these are cousins of mine through my grandfather's sister, who married into some family, and they belong to Haret Hrek. They've been living there for more than 100 years. I get there. The entire side of the house that is adjacent to the building that was targeted is impacted. The windows are completely destroyed. The doors are destroyed. There's dust everywhere. And I get there, and it's a scene that it's hard to believe what was going on. And there's some footage that I could show. Dimitri, you uploaded them, right?
I did indeed.
Okay,
so just before we show the footage, I just want to give people some late-breaking news. The Times of Israel is reporting that Israel is bracing for an Iranian missile fire after the strike on what they say was a Hezbollah target in Beirut. So this is the very attack that you are describing. This is how serious this is, what you're describing, the Israelis, because this is a red line for Iran, attacks on Beirut. As we said at the outset, this already precipitated attacks on Israel by the Islamic Republic last week. And so what you saw today was extremely important in the trajectory of this war. And I believe they are claiming that a Hezbollah commander was killed in that strike, although it's unclear at this stage to us exactly who it was. So with that as background, do you want me to pull up the first image, Rami, of your video footage when you arrived on the scene?
Yes, the first one, Rami 1, I believe.
What are we looking at here?
So
Is that your family member's house?
So this is my uncle's property in Harit Harek, the border with Robeiri. This is not my footage. This is my cousin's footage. At that point, this is seconds after the explosion. Are we watching it again?
Yeah.
This is seconds after the explosion. Dust everywhere. Actually, the day before, at the same time, 1:40 p.m. yesterday, I was sitting on that couch over there that you see at the end, playing PlayStation with my cousin. We were playing FIFA, and it's hard to imagine that this is. I mean, it's when I was leaving Bahman Hospital, going to my cousin's house feels like a safe haven in Harit Harek. You don't feel like you are in a dangerous area once you're there.
Right.
The roof is the ceiling is high, it's peaceful, it's quiet, there's a garden. It's like it's a bit of an oasis. And
so should we look at the next image? Is this also of your cousin's house?
So this footage that you just saw, this is seconds after the explosion. I believe I don't remember exactly where my cousin was. He was not in the kitchen nor in the living room. These were the two rooms that were the most impacted. They all heard the strike. I asked the question like how. I mean, they told me that they immediately understood that something was going on. They rushed downstairs to see the debris, and this is what they saw. So this is truly seconds after the strike. The house is covered in dust and rubble. Windows are shattered. Doors are destroyed. Then if we open the second video.
Okay, let me pull that up. Oh, you were about to put that on. My apologies, brother. Go ahead. Here you go.
Put it again.
So is this also your cousin's house?
This is my cousin's house. This is the the smart home cameras. This is like the they have a camera pointed. This is the towards a staircase outside. Not outside. This is like let's just say inside the house. There's like a little stairwell that leads you to the top floors of the property. It's kind of like a middle ground between outside and inside. Mm-hmm. My uncle was actually in this room 5 minutes before the strike. And he was in the staircase 5 minutes before the strike. He was setting up Starlink to get better internet, whatever, because in Lebanon, it's a bit unreliable, the whole internet situation. There's always a power cut. So he was setting up Starlink. Minutes after he installed the Starlink, and they were kind of, saying bye to the technician that was setting it up. This is like literally 5 minutes after they left the staircase, the explosion happened, the target to the property happened, and they evacuated. Thankfully, they were not hurt.
Mm-hmm. So shall we go to the next video that is this the third one, is that your video? Is that also your cousin's footage?
This is my footage.
Okay, let's put that up. Yeah, are you in your cousin's house when you shot this? Where were you at the moment you shot this afternoon?
Sorry?
Where were you when you took this video footage this afternoon?
I was sorry. Where was I when I was?
When you actually shot this, where were you? In what building were you? Was this your cousin's house? Where were you when you shot this?
This is my cousin's house.
Okay, and what are we seeing here?
We are seeing the zone of impact right at the house.
So Rami, the building, was there, you can see right across when you look outside, there's a building standing that appears to be heavily damaged. And then there's a space in between the building you're in and the building across. In between those two buildings, was there a structure that was leveled to the ground, or was that just kind of like?
This is like this was a tiny little road where people pass with their little scooters.
Okay. And so the building across from you, the one that seems to be heavily damaged, do you understand that to have been the target of the Israeli strike today?
Can you repeat that?
The building that we can see right across this little street, when you look out this space, is that the building that you think the Israelis were targeting today?
Yes. So this is the exact property that was targeted by the strike. Right there. Right.
So, Rami, do you have any information about who was killed or wounded in that strike?
So the discussion, what Israel claims was, I think it was a command and control center of Hezbollah in Harith Beirut. But our understanding is that I believe the Lebanese army confirmed 3 people were killed, and of the 3 people, there's 2 of them that were in their late 70s. And from what we're understanding, none of them had anything to do with Hezbollah or anything of this sort. So keep in mind that Israel knows what the red lines of Iran are. It's Beirut. So it seems like the whole purpose of this strike was to derail possibly the memorandum of understanding between Iran and the United States.
Absolutely. And so what else, is there anything else you want to tell us or can tell us about this strike, what you saw today, what you've learned on the ground in Beirut?
Well, I'm mostly curious and I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen after Iran. I believe there's some people talking. On my way out, I took a bus towards downtown Beirut, and people were saying that Iran is promising a tough response. So I'm curious to know what's going to happen there. As you know, Dimitri, we have no fear in our reporting. We were in Nabatea during the largest strikes on Nabatea. We were planning on going to Sur and to Tyre to visit the impact going on there. But I'm going to keep monitoring the situation, and we will keep documenting whatever response will happen tonight.
So before we switch to the so-called peace negotiations and Iran's reaction to this latest atrocity and provocation, why don't you just take a couple of minutes, because what happened to us in Nabatea was really something. So this was on Tuesday of this week. It was my second last day in Lebanon, and we went to Nabatea with Laith Marouf and his producer Ali from Free Palestine TV. It was very dangerous to get there. We were told that multiple motorists had been killed and maimed on the day we traveled, and others on the prior days. And I read a report today that the Israeli military claims to be they had a military outpost on top of Beaufort Castle from which they could see Nabatea. But the report I saw today is that the Israeli military is claiming that its ground forces are in fact closing in now on Nabatea, and it seems like they are intent upon trying to take the city. a city of 120,000, the commercial hub of South Lebanon, but it has been almost entirely evacuated. One of the exceptions to that is the hospital where we were at. So why don't you just talk for a couple of minutes about what happened when we tried to leave Nabatea? And people can see the report of this on our YouTube channel. The report is called "The Heroes of Nabatea," referring to the emergency workers and the medical workers there. Go ahead.
I asked our producer, our editing team, to make a short specifically of our exit out of Nabatea. This was days of my life. I don't know about yours. You have some crazy stories, so maybe you have some scary moments of your life. But basically, what ended up happening was that we were in Nabatea, between Nabatea and we agreed to leave Nabatea, I believe, at like 5:30 p.m., maybe 6 p.m. It was me, you, Ali Mazlout, Laith, as well as Ali Sbeiti of Free Palestine TV.
No, Ali Sbeiti is with RT International.
Sorry, Ali Sbeiti of RT International.
Just so people know, Ali Sbeiti was with RT International war correspondent Steve Sweeney a few weeks ago when the two of them were almost blown to bits by an Israeli bomb on a site where the Israelis had already destroyed a bridge. The bridge was already taken out. There was no reason to hit the place, but the Israelis bombed it anyways, as Ali and Steve Sweeney were reporting on the destruction of the bridge. So, please proceed, Rami, with your description of what happened when we left Nabatea.
So we agreed to leave very, very quickly, Nabatea. We split into two cars. Ali Sbeiti has some sort of pickup truck, right, with these big tires. I don't know how many inches, but the ones that you probably want when you're trying to flee a war zone. And we had a tiny little Honda Civic. We split into two cars. Laith was with Ali Sbeiti, and in our car it was me, you, and Ali Mazlout. And as soon as we get into the car, I feel as weird as it may sound, I feel a bit of a sense of safety, knowing that it's kind of like its own universe, right? When we're in the car. So we start going super fast, maybe 100 kilometers an hour. There's not a single car on the road. Both sides of the road are completely destroyed. The cars on the road are burnt. Some of them are actually upside down. And as soon as we rush out, maybe 5 minutes. By the way, one thing that I forgot to mention is that the GPS is completely jammed when we're in the south, right? So I pull out my phone, I open the GPS, it says we're in Jordan. Once we're out, once we're maybe I don't know, like a third of the way, Ali Mazlout says that we were 7 kilometers away from the hospital that we were in, Najda Shabiya. We hear a kind of the sound of a rupture on our rear right tire. And I understand that we were rolling on debris, and that caused an explosion, not explosion, but a rupture of our tower, of our tire, sorry. And as soon as we get out, sorry, Ali Mazlout starts honking 1,000,000 times to notify Ali Sbeiti and Lay that are in the other car to stop. When I heard the pop, I knew our tires were done. I'm in the back not yelling, but like eagerly telling Ali Mazlout to accelerate. This was just a reflex, probably not the wisest thing to do. He gets out of the car. And as soon as we get out of the car, the tire there's no air at all in the rear right tire. My reaction is to tell everyone to go into Ali Sbeiti car and to forget our car and just run away. And Ali Mazlout is trying to change the tire. Ali's Beatty and Laith are trying to change it too. You and I were kind of, I'm not really useful when there's a ruptured tire.
We dispersed because one thing I learned from these war zones is when there are drones overhead, you don't all want to stand in one place. You just become a juicier target to these psychopaths. So you and I dispersed while the others tried to fix the tire. And at that moment, while they were fixing the tire, and you can see this in our report, we heard sounds of Israeli warplanes approaching and drones overhead, and discovered, much to our dismay, that our colleague Ali, whose car had a flat tire, didn't have the necessary equipment to replace the tire. So what happened then, Rami?
So we start. I start panicking. I don't know. Maybe I kept my cool, because when we look at the video, I'm a lot calmer than I think I was in my mind. We hear a Israeli fighter jet like flying right on top of us, and the sound of an Israeli fighter jet is quite frightening, because you cannot really see it, but it sounds so close to you, and you have a sensation of a breeze of air heading towards you, and there's like a bit of I don't know how to say this, and I do not want to sound like I don't want to sound poetic talking about something as destructive as an Israeli fighter jet, but there's a bit of a symphony, a bit in the way the air is just moving around.
Yeah. And we had heard that sound repeatedly that afternoon in Nabatea, and almost every time we heard it, it was followed by an explosion.
But it never sounded this close. Maybe because we were under a roof, but it never sounded this close to us.
Yeah. Anyways, cut to the chase. We all jumped in because we need to get to the second half of our report. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we all jumped into the one vehicle that didn't have flat tires, and we hightailed it out of there and abandoned our colleague's Ali's vehicle. Do you know, by the way, if he's managed to get back in there and recover his vehicle?
Well, the next day, I believe that I saw him, or the 2 days later, I saw him again in Saida. I was telling him not to go get his car. I'm sure we could have run a GoFundMe to buy him a new car. I felt guilty, honestly, because like having him go to the south on his own. He did end up going. He stopped an ambulance. He went to go see. He didn't have the proper not Allen key, but like those big little things to remove the tires. He stopped an ambulance, asked them if they had something to change the spare tires. Turns out the ambulance driver owns a tire repair shop. He found the necessary tools to remove the tire, helped him change the tires, and rushed out. This is the courage of Ali Mazlout.
Yeah, amazing guy. And by the way, the reason really why to watch our report from Nabatea is we not only got to interview Ali Beatty, who talked about his near-death experience with Steve Sweeney of RT International, but we also interviewed the head of the Nabatea Civil Defense, who lost his son to an Israeli atrocity. His son was also a civil defense worker. And we saw others. We were permitted to spend some time in the house beside the hospital in Nabatea where they sleep. They spend 24 hours a day there, sleeping on thin mattresses on the floor. And at any moment, they could just be bombed out of existence. The Israelis could kill them all. And nonetheless, they're there, they're calm. They immediately snap to attention when there's an airstrike and go out into the field. It was really, I have to say, one of the most inspiring things I've ever experienced in my life, Rami, to be there and to see the dignity and professionalism with which they continue to serve their fellow Lebanese in this war-torn city. So I hope you'll watch it. Again, it's called Heroes of Nabatea. We published it 2 days ago. So with that, I want to turn to where we are in terms of these peace negotiations. I want to start by talking about what transpired a few hours before this extremely provocative airstrike in Dahya that Rami has been talking to you about. Trump put out a post on Truth Social yesterday, and I'll put it up on the screen here. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not the right one. Come back to that. And he said Obama's deal with Iran was an easy, beautiful, smooth road to a nuclear weapon. That's a lie, of course. Iran agreed to 3.67% enrichment of uranium, which is far below the threshold for weapons-grade uranium that's over 90%. And they were complying with the deal. Nonetheless, Trump tore it up. In any case, he says Iran would have had a nuclear weapon 6 years ago. He goes, my agreement with Iran is the exact opposite, a wall to no nuclear weapon. In fact, they no longer want a nuclear weapon. Well, they never did. They've been saying for, 20, 30 years that they don't want a nuclear weapon. Again, he's lying. And now he says, nor will they have one either through purchase, development, or any other form of procurement. The deal is scheduled to get signed tomorrow. So he said this yesterday. A signing was supposed to happen today. Okay. On the day when he said the signing was supposed to happen, Israel carried out the highly provocative attack on Beirut that you just heard Rami describe. He then said, our relationship with Iran is much different and better one than previous administrations have had. Wow. Unlike Obama's hundreds of billions of dollars in payments to them, including $1.7 billion in green gold cash, no money will exchange hands. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. At the appropriate time, when all is calm, we will go in and get the nuclear dust. No, you won't. And we look forward to working with Iran and the entire Middle East long into the future. Hopefully, this process will all work out quickly, easily, and smoothly. If it doesn't, we have the ultimate alternative, hopefully never to be used again. Now, I don't know how to read that other than as a threat to nuke Iran if it doesn't conclude this so-called peace deal. And this is not the first time, of course, that Trump has used language with respect to Iran that sounded very much like a threat to nuke Iran. He said a couple of weeks ago that he was going to obliterate Iranian civilization in one night. Well, there's only a way to do that, and that is with a huge nuclear strike. It's the height of irony that this man who cavalierly throws around threats to nuke Iran and has nukes and is the president of the only country to have ever used them, and it used them on civilian populations, is constantly fear-mongering about Iran, a country which has no nukes and has consistently said that it doesn't want nukes. So we then got today's strike, which Rami has described to you in some detail. And immediately, the Iranian leadership reacted very harshly to this, as could have been entirely predicted. The lead negotiator, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the Iranian parliament speaker, put out this post. Zionist aggression against the Dakhia once again demonstrated that America either lacks the will to fulfill its commitments or the ability to do so. By giving the green light to the regime, you cannot gain concessions. The game of bad cop and good cop has grown old. If you lack the will and ability to fulfill your commitments, speaking of continuing the path is not possible. That sounds like a pretty grim assessment of the negotiations. So suddenly, for the 39th time, as CNN documented, we were told a couple of days ago that a peace deal was imminent, and now it looks very much like the negotiations have collapsed or on the verge of collapsing because of Israel's latest provocation. And as I think Mr. Ghalibaf properly notes, Trump almost certainly gave the green light for Israel to do this. We are dealing here with a madman who only postures about peace and does everything by means of his own actions and those of his proxies to undermine peace. And our good friend, Professor Mohammed Marandi, also chimed in after this provocation, and he posted on X, there will be no more negotiations for now. So Trump then chimes in, and Trump says this morning's attack on Beirut should not have happened, particularly on a special day when we are so close to a peace deal in caps with Iran. Israel has the right to defend itself against threats, but the attack it was responding to was very small and meaningless. Nobody was hurt, injured, or killed, and should not disrupt this important process. Well, as you've heard from our colleague Rami, who's on the ground, people were apparently killed, elderly people. So Donald Trump is lying about this. But what's very clear is he's not there's nothing in this post which should lead us to believe that Trump is going to hold Israel accountable for what it did. He's minimizing it. He's making it sound like a non-event, which supports Mohammed Bagher Ghalibaf's interpretation that the regime, the Trump regime, almost certainly greenlighted this. If he was truly not in the loop and opposed this attack by Israel on Beirut today, you would expect that he would speak very harshly in his commentary about it, but instead he's trying to make it sound like it was nothing, and in the process is lying. Quite apart from all of this, there are other reasons to believe that this negotiation is a farce, as I've been saying for months as I'm blue in the face, and that is that within the past 24 hours, there have been clashes in the Strait of Hormuz involving the Iranians and the American military forces. Here you see a post on X earlier today from Mensch Osint. For the third consecutive night, there were clashes between the IRGC and U.S. navies as Trump continues these suicide escort missions to make it look like they have control over Hormuz. The E-3G AWACS, P-8 Poseidon, and fighter jets are active this morning, possibly more clashes coming. And quite apart from all of that, 6 or 7 days ago, after Iran struck Israel for bombarding Beirut yet again, Israel decided that it was going to choke off humanitarian aid for the Palestinian civilian population and intensify its ongoing genocide there. Why anybody would think that these circumstances are likely to produce any kind of a sustainable and just peace deal is beyond me. We are dealing here with people who are criminally insane, who are bent on global hegemony at any cost, who are perfidious, treacherous, liars, bad faith negotiators. They've shown this again and again and again. And from my perspective, the only thing that these people understand is force. And when they say that of their adversaries, they're projecting. That, in fact, describes them. There are many actors in this world who only want to be treated respectfully, have their sovereignty respected, who are prepared to avoid the use of force. The U.S. and its Western vassals are not among them, unfortunately. So this brings me to the terms of this peace deal. I'm going to offer you some critical commentary on this, which is echoed by some Iranian figures, very important Iranian figures, whom I'm going to discuss with you. But before I do that, I want to just issue a few disclaimers. First of all, we don't actually know for sure what the most recent draft of the deal contains. So there have been a lot of drafts that have gone back and forth. I have yet to see a fully published draft, any fully published draft that the parties to this negotiation have confirmed is in fact an authentic draft. So we're getting basically bits and pieces of information from various sources about what is in it, and the thing is evolving all the time. So what I'm about to describe to you may not actually be the complete draft and may not be the most recent draft. And in fact, it's not clear that there will be another draft because Israel and the United States seem to have collapsed the peace negotiations yet again. So that's my first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is I'm going to be critical of this draft, what I understand to be the most recent draft, but I don't want anybody to take that as a lack of appreciation for the Iranian leadership, and particularly the people of Iran. I think that they have and continue to behave in a manner that is simply heroic. They're in a very difficult position, and I don't have access to a lot of information that the Iranian leadership has. For example, I don't know how the blockade is affecting the Iranian economy, and I'm going to come back to that. That is obviously something that they have to be very concerned about. At the end of the day, if the Iranian people are satisfied with the deal that their government negotiates, I would respect that, even though I might not think it's the best deal. They are the ones, after all, who are living with this war and who have suffered so much as a result of it, as have the other peoples of West Asia. So I offer whatever criticisms I'm going to offer in a constructive manner. And if anybody in the Iranian leadership happens to be listening, I hope you'll understand or just ordinary Iranians, whether inside or outside Iran, that this is offered in a constructive manner and with a hope that the Iranian people will finally achieve their objective of sovereignty, peace, and justice. So with that, let me get into some criticism of this deal. And I'm going to start by taking you to extensive commentary that was given by the deputy chairman of the Iranian Parliament's National Security Commission. His name is Mahmoud Nabavian. In an interview he just did, I think it was yesterday, with the Iranian media. In the interest of time, I'm not going to show you all of his criticisms. There were others that I'm not going to get into, but I'm going to focus on the ones that I think are most compelling. So first of all, he said in this interview on an Iranian media outlet, SNN, I've seen most of the original agreement text, and clause 1 in this new version is better than earlier versions. Earlier versions said end of war, which could leave room for the U.S. to claim the war ended while still carrying out defensive military operations. This version says, quote, immediate and permanent end of military operations, close quote, on all fronts, including Lebanon, which is much stronger. It also commits both sides not to start a war, threaten, use force against each other. So that's the one good thing he says about this draft. And then it goes all downhill from here, according to him. Now, he refers here to clause 3 of this memorandum of understanding. He says the text becomes very serious. My main concern is the final agreement timeline. It says negotiations should reach a final agreement within 60 days, but it can be extended by both sides with no clear limit. That creates ambiguity. This matters because clause 4 says U.S. forces must leave the region around Iran 30 days after the final agreement. But if the final agreement can be delayed again and again, then the U.S. withdrawal also becomes delayed and unclear. In my view, this benefits America, and Iran should have demanded a precise fixed timeline. So what he's saying here, and as you're going to see, this agreement apparently requires Iran to immediately open up the Strait of Hormuz without restriction, which would alleviate pressure on Trump. That's the main source of pressure on Trump and his government, is the severe constraints on the flow of essential commodities, including oil and gas, out of the Persian Gulf. But the U.S. would continue to apply pressure on Iran by keeping this massive armada very close to the Iranian coastline. He says that that's unfair. I think that that is an entirely legitimate criticism. And then he says, my core objection is that too many major benefits for Iran are pushed to the vague final agreement whose date is unclear and extendable. The 300 billion mechanism, this is supposed to be, by the way, the 300 billions refers to reparations for Iran. He says, and the ending of U.S. sanctions and the nuclear issue and U.S. troop withdrawal all depend on a final agreement. But until then, in the meantime, Iran itself is proposing to freeze three things. 1, our current nuclear status, meaning no enrichment. 2, the damaged nuclear facilities staying as they are instead of being rebuilt. 3, U.S. sanctions remaining in place. Even worse, U.S. forces would also remain in the region until the final agreement. So my question is this really America's proposal or ours? Because if the final agreement can keep getting extended, Iran gives up leverage during the waiting period while America keeps sanctions and troops in place. Again, I personally think that that is a fair and legitimate criticism. So then there's more. He says, Clause 4 has one good point. The U.S. must start lifting the naval blockade immediately after signing the memorandum and fully end it within 30 days. But the serious problem is the U.S. troop withdrawal. It says American forces must leave the area surrounding Iran, but within 30 days after the final agreement. But we still do not know when the final agreement will happen. Second, surrounding Iran is vague. Does it mean Bahrain, 100 kilometers, 2 meters? This should have been defined with exact distances and locations, not vague wording. Now, I just want to stress here, when you're dealing with a bad faith actor like Donald Trump, you want to have an extremely detailed, meticulously crafted agreement. I say this as somebody who has been doing this for over 30 years as a litigator. I have negotiated countless contracts, dispute resolution agreements, settlement agreements, and class actions. And I understand that this thing is no more than a page and a half long. It is inconceivable to me that this agreement has been drafted with the necessary level of detail to box Trump into a corner and make sure that he complies with the agreement. If it's only a page and a half long and it doesn't even define essential terms like what surrounding Iran means, then you're giving Trump, the scam artist, the con man, the treacherous, perfidious liar, enormous opportunities to weasel out of the agreements that he has purportedly made. I would never enter into an agreement with this man, if I were even to contemplate any agreement at all, with anybody like Donald Trump, without having a meticulously crafted, very detailed agreement that basically foresees each and every contingency that might arise and addresses in exact terms how the parties are obliged to react in relation to every one of these contingencies. They basically have, based on what I've heard and understand, they've taken the back of the envelope approach, the napkin approach, and scribbled down a few, ambiguous phrases. And if you were acting with, if you were actually involved in negotiation with people who are really good faith actors, people of integrity, that might be okay. But with this man, no. That is a prescription for disaster. So I think that Mr. Nabavian's critique here is quite warranted. So let me take you to a couple of other things that he has to say about this agreement. Just pull it up here. Clause 5 about the Strait of Hormuz, and because it says immediately upon signing the memorandum, it means this part does not wait for later negotiation. So he's saying as soon as the memorandum is signed, Iran has to completely open the Strait of Hormuz, which is its greatest source of leverage. The closure is its greatest source of leverage. He says, my concern is that the text does not clearly say Iran will reopen the strait under its own management control. Some people close to the negotiating team claim Iran's management is included, but I'm reading the text and I don't see it. If Iran opens the strait for 60 days without explicitly preserving its own control, then restoring that control later will be very difficult and could bring international legal pressure. My broader concern is that in each new version of the draft, Iran has mostly retreated. There's a little bit more from Mr. Nabavian. He says here, my apologies, there's a lot of material here. In the earlier version, it said Iran would immediately open the Strait of Hormuz for all non-military traffic and return passage to pre-war levels within 30 days. In the newer version, they removed the explicit name Strait of Hormuz and replaced it with commercial ships from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and vice versa. My objection is that the text still means the strait opens immediately without further negotiation, but it does not clearly preserve Iran's management control. And then he says, worse, commercial ships is general. It could include American, South Korean, or even Israeli commercial ships. So the agreement apparently doesn't explicitly forbid the passage of Israeli commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz during this period of negotiation and while Israel is carrying out a genocide. That to me is a big problem. It should be explicit that neither American ships nor Israeli ships nor the ships of any country that has participated in this war of aggression on Iran can pass through the Strait of Hormuz unless and until there is a final and binding peace deal. And it's not even clear to me, by the way, that this agreement prohibits the passage of American military vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. They use the phrase commercial ships, but if I were drafting this thing, knowing that I'm dealing with a bad faith actor like Donald Trump, I would explicitly state no military vessels or supply vessels for the American military or any military that is involved in the war in Iran can pass through the Strait of Hormuz at this time. Now, he says, what is even more interesting is that we wrote this and gave it to America, and even this much was not enough for them. They said something else must also be added here, meaning they are clearly trying to say that you have no right to apply anything Ships must come and go without limits. In other words, it must return to the pre-war conditions. So the way he's reading this agreement, this draft, Iran would give up any and all control over the Strait of Hormuz before there's any final agreement, before it gets any material benefits at all. And that, as I said, is by far its greatest source of leverage. So a little bit more here in terms of criticism of the draft. My apologies. There's quite a bit of material I'm trying to organize. Here we go. Now, this to me is probably the most important point. My objection to Clause 6 is that it talks about reconstruction and economic development, not damages, compensation, or reparations. The leader clearly said to collect compensation for damages to Iran, but these words are missing from the text. The 300 billion is also vague. It says America will work with its regional partners, meaning countries like Saudi Arabia or the UAE may be expected to pay. But what if they refuse? Americans can simply say, we asked them, they didn't pay. So what he's saying is this agreement should impose on the United States itself an obligation to pay, rather than fobbing off that responsibility on its vassals in the region, so that they can't then use the U.S. government can't use the excuse that those vassals who are not parties to the agreement refuse to pay any money to Iran. This is just a way for Donald Trump to weasel out of an obligation to pay reparations to Iran, which the U.S. has an obligation to do under international law because this war was a war of aggression in violation of the UN Charter. And then it says, according to Mr. Nabavian, that the MOU says that if the money comes, even if it comes, its spending must be agreed by both Iran and America. That means America could interfere in where the money goes, block projects linked to the IRGC, or force certain contractors. He means basically force the Iranians to use American or other Western corporations to rebuild their country. Why should they have to do that? Why can't they, choose their own contractors, their own corporations, or corporations from friendly countries? Why should the United States profit from the reconstruction of a country that it attacked on in violation of the UN Charter? And then he says, so in my view, Iran may neither receive guaranteed money nor control how it is spent, and all of this is delayed until the nuclear final agreement. Now, finally, two other things I want to show you before we close it out. These are not the only criticisms we have seen. Dr. Fouad Izadi has posted something, I think, compelling on X. We have had Dr. Izadi on our program several times. He's a professor at the University of Tehran. And here is what he had to say on X. I'll read it to you because the print's a bit small probably for you. Details of the 14-article draft memorandum of understanding between Iran and America, meaning opening the Strait of Hormuz is the first step. That is, resolving Trump's economic and political problems. Countries usually do not hand over their most important lever of power to the opposing side in the first step. After the opening of the Strait of Hormuz and the reduction in oil prices, America's oil reserves will be replenished again, and in the opportunity created, the military systems of America and Israel will be repaired and rebuilt. 3, this means repeating the cycle of attack, ceasefire, negotiation, attack. The enmity of those who martyred the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution against Iran has not diminished. Finding an excuse to withdraw from the memorandum of understanding will not be difficult for Trump. Trump should not be able to claim that the cost of a second military attack on Iran was tolerable. America and Israel will use this breathing opportunity to prepare for the next attacks. Planning for a second coup is also on the agenda. And by the way, if you read the Israeli press, that's certainly the impression that you would have. Then he says the main sanctions against Iran are the congressional sanctions, not the executive branch sanctions. In this way, Trump will renege with the excuse that he cannot force Congress to lift the sanctions. Since 2015, any agreement with Iran under the INARA law, this is a U.S. law, requires Congress's affirmative vote. Given the influence of the Israeli lobby, Congress will not vote yes to lifting sanctions against Iran. Netanyahu's influence among Democratic and Republican representatives is greater than Trump's. Solution, he says this: 1, please do not sign this memorandum of understanding. 2, Please publish a list of Iran's targeted desalination facilities and oil facilities in the region. In the event of another attack on Iran, these facilities must be destroyed in such a way that their reconstruction takes at least 2 years. Limited destruction does not create the necessary deterrence. Trump views the limited destruction of these facilities as a reconstruction project for American companies, but extensive destruction will keep global oil and gas prices high for at least 2 years and create the necessary deterrence. Alternative routes to the Strait of Hormuz must be Iran's top priorities. 3, please do not open the Strait of Hormuz for at least another 2 months. In the past 3 months, Iran has sold more than 30 billion worth of oil. This amount is sufficient for managing the economy for the next 2 months. And finally, 4, please do not forget to collect tolls from the Strait of Hormuz. Based on international estimates, the tolls from the Strait of Hormuz can be more than twice the oil sales. Part of the solution to the country's economic problems lies here, not in the delusion of lifting sanctions. Now, I pretty much agree with what Dr. Azadi has said, although I would not urge Iran to target desalination plants unless and until there has been an all-out attack on its own civilian infrastructure. That should be a last resort. But I understand the sentiment as somebody who has lived in Iran and seen these horrors, as Dr. Azadi has done, and the treacherous nature of the Trump and Netanyahu regimes. I can't understand why he would be urging his government to take this approach. Now, somebody, and this is my last, the last commentary that I want to show you today. An Iranian parliamentarian today issued this comment only within the past few hours. He's actually a member of the National Security Commission. His name is Ahmad Bakshayesh, and he gave, according to the Telegram channel Fotros Resistance, more details on this MOU. And he said, in the MOU, the Strait of Hormuz will be open and no tariff will be charged for the passage of ships. However, Iran can collect fees for insurance, fuel, environmental services, and so on. I just want to pause there. Mr. Nabavian didn't say that about this MOU, so there seems to be a conflict. He said there was nothing in there about Iran's authority to collect any kind of fees on these ships. So maybe they're talking about 2 different drafts. Maybe they have a different read of the drafts. But according to Mr. Bakshayesh, Iran does have the authority under this draft, or the one that he's talking about, to impose fees. Then, and this part I think is really bad, I have to say, most likely 12 billion of Iran's frozen assets will be received in the form of basic and medical goods. But Iran had insisted on receiving this 12 billion in cash, while the U.S. said it should be in the form of basic goods. There were disagreements over this issue. The assets will be released in line with Iran fulfilling its commitments over a period of 30 or 60 days. Let's just stop there. So first of all, whether it's cash or goods, according to this member of Parliament's National Security Commission, Iran is not getting this up front. Okay? It's very important. It would come later. So Iran would have to open up the Strait of Hormuz, allow the United States and other countries around the world to replenish their oil inventories, alleviating the pressure that is built up on the U.S. to do a deal. And then the United States could say, to hell with you. We're not giving you these basic goods. So all along, the Iranian negotiators have been saying that they have to get the money up front because they don't trust the United States. And that is the correct position. And it seems from this commentary that they haven't agreed to the U.S. proposal, which is good. But if they do, in my view, that would be a terrible mistake. They should demand the money up front. And secondly, they should not be willing to accept basic goods, whether they're medical or otherwise, in lieu of cash. No way. For a few reasons. First of all, cash, you can do anything with cash. You can use it to rebuild your destroyed civilian infrastructure. You could use it to buy medical goods, humanitarian goods. You could also use it to replenish your munitions in case you're attacked again. Iran should have the right to do that, to defend itself, to use this money to defend itself. So this restricts what Iran can do with the unfreezing of assets. But the second thing is, how do you value the goods that the United States decides to deliver to Iran. The United States might say, oh, hey, these goods we're sending to you are worth $12 billion, but in fact, they're only worth $1 billion. And no one should think that Trump isn't capable of trying to pull that kind of a con. He's totally capable of it. Is there a mechanism in this agreement, an objective, independent, reliable mechanism for valuing these goods and making sure that they're actually worth $12 billion? What if they send to them, humanitarian supplies that are past their due date? Does anybody doubt that Trump is capable of such an act of treachery? No, he's totally capable of it. So if I were in Iran's position, there's no way that I would accept anything other than cash. I wouldn't give a damn whether it comes from Qatar or the UAE or the United States. But I would say before we do anything, before we open up the Strait of Hormuz or make any concessions to you, you have to deliver the money to us in cash. And only then will we do anything. And this is exactly what Iranian negotiators were saying over the past 2 months. And I really hope that they will stick by their guns, because if they don't, they're going to get cheated. It is a virtual inevitability. Now, if in fact the Iranian government is going to accept this proposal, in my view, in other words, they're not going to demand the money, cash, upfront. And they're going to open up the Strait of Hormuz before they receive anything, whether it's cash or goods. There's only one conceivable justification for this that I can think of. And the justification is that the blockade on Iranian ports is so severe that it is about to collapse the Iranian economy. And they desperately need the blockade to be lifted, because that is a key element of this deal. Iran opens up the Strait of Hormuz, the United States opens up simultaneously or lifts the blockade. Now, maybe that's the position that they're in. I have not been hearing this from people in Iran, that the situation is that desperate. But I'm not in the government. The government has access to far more information than any of us does. And maybe that's the situation they find themselves in. And so their priority right now is to get the blockade lifted. And they're willing to make very serious concessions in order to achieve that goal. But if that's not the situation in which they find themselves, I cannot for the life of me imagine why they would agree to any of this. And at the end of the day, friends, all of this may be completely academic at this point, because as I've been predicting from day one, the United States and Israel are acting in a way that is designed to sabotage any negotiations at all. So it all may just be academic at this stage. Go ahead, Rami.
It kind of feels like the oil for food program that Iraq was under during the 1990s after the invasion of Kuwait, where Iraq was exporting its oil in exchange for food. And what it does, it actually leads to famine eventually, because it deindustrializes the country. It removes the need to develop local production, local farming, local agriculture, because depending on foreign goods entering the country. So possibly there could be a kind of like of a Trojan inside this agreement that could impact Iran in the long run. But I'm curious, Dimitri, what you think about the possibility that the Iranians might be just wanting to gain some time. I mean, the Trump regime is destructive. A bad deal under Trump's current leadership doesn't necessarily mean that this will stick forever. Once Trump is gone, maybe there could be a new status quo. I'm just curious, do you feel like Iran is probably trying to wait out Trump's term?
Well, the way to make sure that Trump is greatly weakened, in my view, is to cause him to lose the midterms, to lose control of the House and the Senate. If he retains control of the House and Senate, I think he's going to come back after Iran for sure, after the midterms. Absolutely.
For the type of warfare that Trump is waging, he doesn't need support from House and Senate, because it's technically not a war. It's isolated attacks here and there. And that's kind of the loophole he found to go to war without actually declaring it.
Well, that's not the issue. I think the issue is he's going to get his ass impeached if he loses control of the House and Senate. So he'll lose the presidency. And that's a serious risk. And then, remember, he has gone after his political rivals with a vengeance. They are licking their chops at the idea of taking Trump out, prosecuting him, removing him from office, not for the good of the American people, but because they're vindictive. And he has gone on a warpath against Democrats. and his critics. People, even former senior officials in the FBI, he's been trying to prosecute criminally. So I think that he knows that if he loses the midterms, and he's right about this, he's toast. He's toast. So if I were in the position of the Iranians, I would be doing everything possible to cause him to lose the midterms, which means wrecking the U.S. economy. But if you open up the Strait of Hormuz, you are undermining that goal.
And
there is one other thing you reminded me, Rami. I want to say, I didn't say this, and I have to say this. Even in this deal, which I've been criticizing, okay, even this deal constitutes a humiliating defeat for the United States. Let's be very clear about that. Okay, the idea that the deal doesn't impose any obligation on Iran to end completely its nuclear program enrichment. It doesn't impose any obligation on them to turn their enriched uranium over to the U.S. It doesn't result in any regime change. It doesn't put any restriction on their ballistic missile program. It doesn't bar them from supporting the Axis of Resistance members in Lebanon and so forth. So it is a total humiliation. Let's be very clear about that. But that doesn't mean that it will result in a just and lasting peace. For the time being, it's clear that Iran has handed Trump's ass to him and Netanyahu's ass to him. But that's a different question. Whether Iran has won the war up until now is a different question about whether this agreement will result in a just and lasting peace for the region. In my view, it will not. And I doubt any agreement will. These people are agreement incapable.
And last time we spoke about this, we spoke about not believing the Kabuki theater, and that was the presence of European and American forces in the Strait of Hormuz to guarantee free flow of goods through the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think that Trump is trying to sign this memorandum in order to convince European forces to enter the Strait of Hormuz so that it makes it harder for Iran to, let's just say, restrict access to the Strait of Hormuz and use it as leverage in the future? Although me personally, I feel like Iran could easily close the Strait of Hormuz at any time just by laying down mines or by just symbolically hitting one boat with a drone. And it's very difficult for anyone to intercept the drones that Iran has. Curious to know what's your stance on this.
Entirely possible. It depends on whether getting the European military vessels into the Persian Gulf would work. Would depend on what the agreement actually says. Does it actually have language which clearly precludes the movement of military vessels through the Strait of Hormuz? I also agree with you that Iran can very quickly close down the Strait of Hormuz again. But even if it's just open for 2 months, and oil and gas comes pouring out of it again, that is going to alleviate pressure on Trump in advance of the midterms. You want to increase the pressure as the midterms approach. So I would not, if I were in their shoes, I would not open the Strait of Hormuz under 2 conditions. First, you have to give us a big whack of money up front, cash, not goods, cash, tens of billions of dollars. So we have the assurance, because you can't take that back from us if you cheat. And the second thing is Iran has to maintain control over the Strait of Hormuz during this negotiation period. And that includes the freedom to block Israeli ships, supply ships to U.S. military bases, and charge fees. Only then would I open up the Strait of Hormuz if I was in Iran's position. But like I said, if they're in a really bad spot because of the blockade and they got to get the blockade lifted, I could understand why they would be willing to make these concessions. I just don't know if that's the situation is that dire, economically speaking.